Should I even do this video?
So you take this under advisement, jerkweed.
I tend to lose patience with fandom when casting choices are announced, mainly because 95% of the time, the fault of a film doesn't lie with the actor or actors. It lies squarely with the writer, director, and producer. Those three roles intermingle and shape nearly everything that works or won't work in a film.
I don't think we need the writer any longer.
The writer is necessary. All my crew is necessary.
Obviously, there are times where the star is also the writer and director, and God help the audience then.
I do not think you realize the gravity of your situation.
All bets are off, and the actor does shoulder the responsibility. And yes, there are times where casting choices are notoriously terrible. But most of the time, I find fan anger at casting decisions to be an emotional misfire toward the wrong target. Most actors are doing what is asked of them, and a lot of actors at the level of skill these superhero movies require could perform the part in any way the producer and director request.
Buck, no more speaking lines for you.
Look at all of the fan rage around the casting of Robert Pattinson as Batman in the year prior to the film. Now the Batman is being gushed over by many fans as this amazing adaptation of the character. To me, Pattinson was never the concern. I always look to the writer, director, and producer. A lot of people like what they call the Christian Bale Batman films. I personally am not as big a fan of the more accurately described Christopher Nolan Batman films. I wasn't a fan of the throat cancer voice for Batman.
You'll be in a better jail forever.
But I never blamed Bale for it. He has the ability to do whatever Nolan wanted. I also didn't like the attempt at realism that flopped over into pretentious and tedious. That sits squarely on Nolan's vision for the trilogy, not Bale.
How dare you speak to me that way? I have shots! I am the director!
Let me put it another way. I never liked the Spider-Man films starring Tobey Maguire, not even Spider-Man 2.
That's slander.
That had nothing to do with the cast. Guys like Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, and J.K. Simmons are excellent actors. My distaste for those films has everything to do with the tone and direction of the performances in the films, all chosen by director Sam Raimi.
Think about it, hero!
But you are.
Nice to have a fan. Nice to have a fan.
Nice to have a fan.
I don't blame Maguire for why I don't like those films. I was always confident Maguire had the skills to deliver whatever was asked of him. It's simply that what Raimi asked of him was not to my liking.
Finish it!
Oh, jeez, Sam Raimi, God. By contrast, what director Mark Webb did with the character of Peter Parker, as performed by Andrew Garfield, was much closer to what I had been looking for in an on-screen Spider-Man.
I'll walk you home. What's your name?
Jorge.
Jorge? I'm Spider-Man.
People love to say certain actors don't have the range for this or that that certain actors could never pull off that role or this character. I just don't see that as the case 95% of the time. I think Maguire could have gone miles in a different direction under a director like Webb. No, his performance wouldn't have been identical to Garfield's. They're not the same person. But I'm confident Maguire's Spider-Man under Webb would have been unrecognizable from his performance under Raimi. And all of that came to pass with Spider-Man No Way Home. Director John Watts and Maguire delivered a performance that I finally truly enjoyed from the original big screen Spider-Man. And in an ironic twist, the director I felt was the big reason I didn't enjoy the original Spider-Man films went off and did a follow-up to one of my favorite MCU movies, Doctor Strange. The original film is in my top 3 Marvel films, and writer-director Scott Derrickson did a stellar job with that story and those characters. Raimi's Doctor Strange 2 was a big disappointment for me by contrast. Notice how Benedict Cumberbatch is never mentioned in that assessment of the two films. He is capable of delivering what each director asks. Derrickson was right in walking away from that project. A lifelong Doctor Strange enthusiast, he saw the concept for the sequel from the Marvel brass as a mistake. That substandard plan for the film then added Raimi into the mix, sealing its fate.
That doesn't seem fair.
Which brings us to possibly the most contentious casting decision within fandom in recent memory. Brie Larson as Captain Marvel.
And here we go.
Unlike the aforementioned actors, even Pattinson, the casting of Larson was met not just with subjective criticism of her acting chops, not just with aghast disappointment that Marvel's big-screen Captain Marvel was a new invention and reflected nothing from the classic comics, but also with a scrutiny into Larson's actual personality. The fandom really went in surgically on Larson in the run-up to Captain Marvel. Granted, she didn't do herself any favors in interviews by being confrontational at times. Now, Brie. Only Tom Cruise can do that and still be loved. Gotta tone that down, okay? Otherwise, the hypocrites are coming at ya.
Here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do. You're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is.
Remember, everyone, it's totally fine to be a dick in interviews and on set during filming as long as you're Tom Cruise. Because Top Gun!
I told you, and now I want it. And if you don't do it, you're out! We are not shutting this movie down! Is it understood? If I see it again, you're gone!
When a guy with a personality well known for being a weird, arrogant, confrontational cultist is having every fanboy right now wanting to clean his toilet with their tongues in an act of praise and worship, I find it truly laughable that anyone bothered to get worked up about Larson's personality.
17 magazine. Yes! We're gonna do that. That's why you're here.
This is thin, Riggs. This is very thin.
This is anorexic.
Hypocrisy? Thy name is modern fandom. But fandom is, as I've said many times, totally lacking in self-awareness, totally blind to details, and always defaulting to emotional reaction. To excuse the extreme litany of documented negative behavior in Cruise because you think a movie he did is the bestest ever, while going on a full crusade against the other because she said some mildly annoying stuff and starred in a forgettable Marvel film? You gotta get your arguments and priorities straight, otherwise your credibility is shot. I don't want you to misunderstand me. It's okay to love this movie, and it's okay to hate this movie. But it's totally dishonest to say this actor is problematic and not say the same about this guy.
I'm not standing here asking you to marry me. I'm just asking you not to marry him.
What the critics of Larson have basically said is, we're really annoyed by rainy days, but that tornado that destroyed an entire town over the last 25 years, we're totally cool with that and we hope it keeps happening. You have just introduced bias into everything you say.
I see through you!
My take is the same as it has always been. Hollywood actors can often be very obnoxious, entitled people, and you should never heap praise or worship on these individuals, whether they're Brie Larson or Tom Cruise.
He has no respect for anyone's privacy and will cross any boundaries available to him. I hate him with all my heart. Yeah.
You either have to apply that measuring stick dispassionately to every single movie star whose movies you discuss, or, and I think this is the better option, stop talking about their personalities in your assessments of these films. Insofar as Larson's actual personality is concerned, much of it is subjective. I don't know anyone who actually knows her in real life. We all respond to vibes we get from interview footage and whatnot. As someone who has been regularly judged unfairly by randos on the internet who think they have my personality pegged without actually knowing me, I have a lot of sympathy for Larson getting raked by fandom over her alleged personality. Her tone of voice, her facial expressions, her sense of humor, all of it can and is subjectively interpreted by randos online that don't know her. I've been told 1,000 times by randos that they don't like my face, my tone of voice, nor can they even recognize my sense of humor. And they're convinced my personality can be defined accurately as toxic by proxy.
I tried, but he's not very talkative. Plus, I think he hates me.
You have that effect on a lot of people.
But you love me, right, Yuri?
I tolerate you.
So yeah, I don't give a lot of credence to people's assessments of Larson's actual personality beyond this simple posit. Hollywood actors can be obnoxious. For the last few days, this video was on the RetroBlasting Patreon, and some reactions made it immediately apparent people were jumping to conclusions without hearing me. Some claimed Cruise was absolved of acting the way he has because his movies have made a lot of money. Some claimed the double standard wasn't hypocrisy because they see themselves in a culture war. Therefore, all bets are off.
He's saying it's our fault?
I'm saying there may be a causality.
Some claimed that because Cruise had never attacked certain demographics of his fans, that made him better than Larson. If you like Cruise because he's trying to make his movies appeal to the broadest possible audience, I hope you realize that studios are always trying to make their movies appeal to the broadest audiences. They believe every decision they make, including broader diversity of the casting choices, will help them achieve that goal, whether you agree with their decisions or not. As for Cruise not being critical of his fan base, he's from a religion that believes anyone who isn't part of that cult is inherently inferior. So by default, he's critical of you as a person. Larson, on the other hand, specifically criticized the entertainment media, not the fan base. And if I recall, you guys have plenty of criticisms about the entertainment media. Yeah, what she said about not caring what white male film critics think of her movies wasn't a great decision for her optics, but she wasn't attacking Marvel fans. As for the money thing, Larson has been in films that have brought in more than $5 billion in her career thus far. So if you're gonna say that Cruise should be allowed to abuse people because he's rich and makes successful movies, that means you've just given Larson a pass to kick you in the nuts as well. I'll be over here maintaining that nobody should be allowed to abuse other people, whether they're a journalist, a film crew person, or otherwise, regardless of the size of their bank account.
I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
Now let's unpack the idea that this is a culture war, and therefore having a double standard is totally fine.
There's a war out there, old friend. A world war.
No? When you claim to be the objective party, when you claim to be the better person in a disagreement, when you claim your values are for the greater benefit of society, you have an obligation to stick to them, especially when it's difficult.
I'm not weak!
Then prove it. Control your emotions. Discipline your mind.
Convictions aren't easy and require courage. They aren't something you can put away when they're inconvenient.
And if I'm the only one, then so be it. But I'm willing to bet I'm not.
Unfortunately, that reversal has been happening more and more. When Gina Carano was under fire, the claim was rightly made that she shouldn't be canceled or persecuted for her real-life politics and personality. I said as much in my video about the situation at Lucasfilm. The odd part was that many of the people who were defending Carano had been the people who wanted Larson gone because of her real-life politics and personality just a few months before. Hundreds of videos were posted about Larson, hoping to achieve the goal of compelling Disney to fire her from the MCU. Her politics and personality have no place in the MCU, and she should be fired. Hey, you can't fire someone for their politics and personality.
Care to revise your statement, sir?
What? Do you want to change your bullshit story, sir?
So, cancel culture sucks unless it's someone you'd like to see canceled, I guess. You can't have it both ways. You either stand by the blanket statement that persecuting people is wrong, even those you disagree with, or you must own your worldview and even-handedly attack the real-world personalities of every celebrity you discuss. Some told me this double standard wasn't hypocrisy because it was inspired by these studios' unfair practices, as people like Larson were not canceled while people like Carano had been.
We've been treated like cattle.
So what?
We've been left to fend for ourselves.
So's everyone.
It's not fair.
Oh, it's not fair!
As I've tried to explain in a number of videos, corporations are never going to play fair, but they also change with the wind. The values they claim to hold one day will not be the values they have the next day. That makes it even more important for fandom to stick to the values it claims to hold dear. Otherwise, you're just as guilty as the people you're pushing back against.
You're not superior to people who were cruel to you. You're just a whole bunch of new cruel people.
Do not commit the crime for which you know serve the sentence.
Okay, so they cast Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. Marvel threw this character into the mix way too late, literally one film before the endgame. They shoehorn in this entirely new character and expect audiences to warm to her instantly. The Captain Marvel film should have happened right after the first Avengers movie at the very latest, but Marvel didn't plan very well in this instance. So right off the bat, Marvel has taken a few wounds here. The character is coming into the MCU too late. The character isn't from the classic comics storylines. Fans are hating on Brie Larson as a human. That's a lot of bruises off the starting line. How did the movie pan out? Maybe that would clear things up a bit. The film is, frankly, joyless and forgettable superhero pablum. Until this latest phase of the MCU got going, Captain Marvel was at the bottom of the library. Much of the story is inaccessible, despite Marvel proving with Guardians of the Galaxy that they are able to deliver a coherent cosmic adventure for new audiences.
Your name is... it's Taserface?
That's right.
Do you shoot tasers out of your face?
Marvel made the baffling decision to upend the entire established mythology of the Kree, Skrulls, and Mar-Vell. Nick Fury is turned into a punchline.
Congratulations, Agent Fury. You have finally asked a relevant question.
Meanwhile, the story they did craft is stilted and boring. In fact, there was only one little moment from this film I actually liked. That's it. So now we have an entry in the MCU that isn't well loved, even amongst the devotees that refuse to admit it isn't very good. No matter how much of a fanboy you admit to being, Captain Marvel isn't making anyone's top 5 MCU films. At this point, even though it is claimed Larson's Endgame scenes were all filmed prior to the production of her standalone movie, Marvel is famous for reshooting things right up until the final weeks. With the uneven reception the film and the actress were receiving from the fanbase, and Marvel very much needing the character to resonate with their viewers, one would think they would try to adjust the character with some reshoots. Despite being played for comedy, it didn't help the character's situation with critics that she beats up a Skrull disguised as an old lady and steals a guy's motorcycle and clothes. Maybe those scenes in Captain Marvel and instances like them were too late to change, but Endgame could have made a few more adjustments. It's a shame because I honestly don't want to dislike this character, but they aren't selling it at all well. There are moments in Captain Marvel with potential to win me over on this Carol Danvers.
Congratulations to you, Star Force lady. You're under arrest.
But the characterization ends up being uneven, and when viewing it, you can feel the filmmakers aren't certain which direction they want to take everything regarding Larson's hero. She's overpowered and underpersonalitied. I just made up that word because alliteration is important. Despite opportunity to reshoot her brief scenes in Endgame in the wake of the mixed reception to everything about Captain Marvel within the MCU, the Marvel brass doesn't seem to have been overly concerned. She shows up and treats the established heroes brusquely, dismissing her homeworld's dire situation.
Because before you didn't have me.
Where the hell have you been all this time?
There are a lot of other planets in the universe.
And we are left with Thor telling us we need to like her.
I like this one.
Later, she once again dismisses the needs of Earth and the rest of the Avengers, and says she isn't going to be around with a "don't call me, I'll call you" attitude.
I'm covering a lot of territory. The things that are happening on Earth are happening everywhere, so you might not see me for a long time.
Not a great way to start righting the ship for this character with audiences.
You stole me. From my home, my family, my friends.
Wow.
At the climax of Endgame, I find I actually like Captain Marvel in one single, briefest of moments. Her encounter with Peter Parker.
Hi, I'm Peter Parker.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
That right there is the one spot where I like her character. I wish she'd been more that than this.
What?
For emergencies only, okay?
I don't have a problem with a confident character. I don't even have a problem with a character that feels superior.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
You will.
I have a problem with foisting it on the audience, underselling it, and then telling us how we should feel.
I like this one.
Rather than letting the character earn it. And I think it's apparent I wasn't the only person who felt that way. They gave Captain Marvel a hiatus for a spell before bringing her back in the end credits scene of Shang-Chi.
So you might not see me for a long time.
When you watch the scene, it is immediately apparent Marvel is trying to course correct the character's personality and win over audiences to her. She's a little more approachable in her line deliveries, and they even have her tell the characters how nice it was to meet them, which was previously very out of character for Captain Marvel.
Get my number from Bruce. It was so nice to meet you.
But all of it is clunky and carries no weight, because in the very same moment, she once again has a more important phone call, bails on the situation, lies to them that Bruce can contact her, and then Bruce dejectedly explains what she just said isn't true while making it clear she does this all the time and how annoying it feels.
I'm so sorry. I have to deal with this.
I don't have her number. She does this a lot.
Instead of eliminating one of Captain Marvel's most obnoxious character traits, Marvel has decided to lean into it and try to sell it as an adorable in-joke aspect of this character's persona, while reinforcing that the legacy Marvel heroes recognize this and do not like it. How is that helping the Captain Marvel situation for the MCU ahead of the Marvels? I guess it's possible the brass running the MCU simply don't care, but if they do, they're bumbling their way through Carol Danvers' personality retcon like amateurs, which is a shame, because right now the MCU desperately needs a few pre-Endgame characters to anchor the upcoming films, and they don't have that many to choose from as more and more are killed off.
Our list of allies grows thin.
It's not as if we can rely on the Eternals to make the MCU fun or compelling through the next phases of the story. Marvel Studios needs to put serious attention into Carol Danvers' personality, because right now they're without a charismatic leader for this universe. I don't think Larson as an actress is the problem within the walls of Marvel Studios, regardless of how you feel about her as a private individual. I simply think the overall MCU plan fumbled the rollout of Danvers and just kept fumbling, and they'd better find their footing fast.
Just put your manners back in. I'm just telling you right now. Don't say...